Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Claire Laughlin. I'm so glad to be back here with you for day 2. Today we have a very action-packed class about transformational design. And I will tell you a little bit of the backstory about how I got so interested in doing this transformational design work as we go through class today. But you'll see here on the front slide that there's my little Be an Amazing Trainer logo. This course is a very quick dive into a longer course that I teach called Be an Amazing Trainer. And it is an online combination course where you watch videos online and then you actually receive coaching. And you should be familiar with it now because you actually also have the workbook from the class. So that all goes together, and the workbook goes in quite a bit deeper into each of the exercises that we will do today and gives you many additional exercises. So we'll reference that a few times, but you all have a copy of the workbook so that you can take this even further in your own practice. So let's review our meeting guidelines. If you can keep your camera on, especially for breakout sessions, that would be great. Today is a very hands-on class. We're going to do multiple exercises where you have time to go and work together, and also a little bit work on your own as well to really look at your course. And this, you could look at this mini course that we're going to do, but you can also just go into any course that you're really interested in redesigning and take a deep dive. So cameras on, minimize distractions if you would. Feel free to, as Jonathan said, raise your hand if you've got a question as we go, and we will get into the content here pretty quickly. As a reminder, your roadmap for this course, you've done your pre-work, you picked a topic from your repertoire. I hope you've done that to think about one topic today and apply everything that we're going to learn to one specific topic. Because if you actually go through the content that way, you can really apply the process that I'm going to show you. And then you can, of course, apply that process to another topic down the road and another topic after that and another topic after that. But try to think about keeping one thing in mind as we go through today. Yesterday, we talked about learning the tools of engagement, and our course was all about how to use easy, accessible tools to jump into this online world and try to focus on making sure that you're hooking people in and getting them engaged in your online learning. Today, we are talking about designing for real change. That's what we call transformational design. The emphasis here is to really get people to want to make a difference in their behavior, which is something that a lot of training doesn't really touch on. So today we're really thinking about designing for real change. After today, we're going to put you in some practice teams, and you're gonna find some time on your own to prepare and practice for your capstone presentation. We will come back on day 3 of this boot camp for you to present your plans, and on day 4, we're gonna come together and really reflect and learn, think about the lessons that we learned together. Now, in between day 2 and day 3, we really want you to come to these other 2 workshops, Working Strategically, which is on 8/17, and Marketing and Communicating with Your Audience. Cannot emphasize that enough. These are 2 things that will really help you think about the product that you're putting forth and how to build that profitable and strategic training business. So if you are a director, obviously you know how important that is to build a profitable and strategic training business. But even as an independent freelancer, if you can be thinking in these terms, like how to help market your product and how to help be strategic and work with your contract ed department, it's going to be really powerful, a really powerful combo. I know I used to really appreciate, and I still really appreciate, the trainers that I work with who can help me think strategically and help me think through that marketing lens so that we can work as a team. So we really encourage you to come to those courses. Right as we get started, I want to put us in a breakout session because today we're going to talk about transformational training. Like, I want you to be thinking about any class you've been in or that you've taught, when you've really hit it out of the ballpark. Like, this was a high point for you as a teacher or trainer. Okay, so one of the reasons I want you to think about this is because transformational training is a cut above. Okay, that's how I like to think about it. I like to think about trying to be the best at what I do. And just so you know, I know that we've got a lot of experience in the room here today. We've got a lot of people with a lot of experience. And I too, you know, have been doing this for over 25 years. And I've always focused on trying to do a great job with my training. But it wasn't until I started to develop this methodology that you're going to learn today that it started to be systematically better and better and better. And I was able to make a really noticeable difference in my business because the classes I was teaching were getting better and better and better. And then the word of mouth spread, and it expanded my business exponentially. So I hope that even those of you that have a lot of experience will take a pause today and step back and really think about the best of the best. So imagine a time when you've hit it out of the ballpark as an online trainer. Now, if you haven't done that, think about the online classes that maybe you have attended and think about what makes those ones particularly powerful. Now, again, if you haven't attended a lot of online classes or you haven't done an online class, just think about a live class. That's perfectly fine too. I'm going to put you in these small groups, a breakout session, 3 to 4 people. I'm going to give you 10 minutes. And I want you to talk amongst yourselves. Of course, you'll want to say hello if these are new friends that you didn't meet yesterday. You want to say hello and introduce yourselves. And then I want you to talk amongst yourselves about these questions. What did you do that made it such a great class if you were the teacher? Or what did the teacher do? Okay. And then the other side, I want you to think about what the impact was on the trainees, the people who were receiving the training. What was the difference for them? Now, maybe, again, maybe that was you, or maybe you were in the teacher role and you were seeing something happening there for your trainees. So I want you to talk about those 2 questions and be prepared to share some highlights. Here's how I like to capture these things. I don't know if you can see this very well, but here it says trainer behaviors on one side of the page and impact on trainees on the other side of the page. So maybe somebody in your small group could grab a piece of paper and just capture some things together, because when you come back, we're going to ask you to share. Some of you will be possibly sharing out loud and other people will be putting it in the chat, but we're going to share some highlights about both the trainer behaviors and the impact on trainees. Okay, so let's get you set up in these rooms. Welcome back. All right.
I'm volunteering Belle to go first from our group.
Oh, really? Oh, good. Okay. Belle, will you accept the challenge?
I love it. I love it. Good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday. I wanted to talk about our discussion. It was very meaningful because I'm a new hire and I'm teaching a trade, and I'm a little bit clueless right now when it comes to engaging students online. So luckily you guys presented this in such a I don't know, it's very motivating to talk about the different trainer behaviors and the impact on the trainees. So first of all, we talked about Claire, because Claire, you know, it's amazing that you can keep us engaged for 2 hours and today 4 hours. You know, I don't even know how you're going to pull that off, but amazingly, you made the 2 hours fly yesterday. And we felt it was because of you know when to limit the talking and put us in breakout rooms. You kind of understand the timeline and keeping the energy up. I don't know how, but you make this look so easy that I'm actually worried about entering the classroom myself. I hope my students are laughing and they're smiling as much as I am in your class. And that pretty much reflected on the interaction and the passion of the actual trainer behavior. And we felt that it energizes the classroom.
Right.
It literally energizes the students. So Claire, it's really nice to come into your class and not be bored. You're always, you know, everything that you're talking about, it hits home, and you're always, I know, like I said, like I have never interacted in a classroom without actually meeting the people or seeing
Right.
you like face to face
Right.
in such a manner. And it's actually encouraging.
Okay.
So you actually providing this sense of warmth, you know, it just shows more of your passion, and it doesn't really feel like you're teaching a class. If anything, you're advising us, you know, it almost feels like you're tutoring us a little bit, like, you know, it doesn't feel like one big classroom. I feel like you're actually talking to me.
Nice.
You know, so it just feels very encouraging, and it makes me reflect on how I was a student and how I kind of missed that connection with the teacher.
Right.
So this actually feels a little bit more intimate
Good.
than an actual classroom, as strange as that sounds.
Oh, I
So
love that.
I just want to say thank you guys so much for providing all this insight. Actually, you guys are very comforting.
Nice.
I was scared about engaging in a classroom online, because not only did the college give me one class, they're giving me 3 classes in automotive. So thank you so much. You guys are like my warm blanket, comforting me. I never thought that I would actually feel like this on an online Zoom meeting.
Nice.
You know, like, thank you guys so much.
Well, Belle, I'll just say, today is the day you're going to get all of the strategies for how to really design that compelling online training. So I think at the end of the class, you're going to have some really clear guidance on what you need to really focus in on. So glad you're here.
Yes, and you guys even put it in
other...
writing, like everything's in writing. Like you know, like it's one thing to talk about it, but you guys literally have an agenda. It's just, I'm grateful for the guidelines. You guys, like, I was able to sleep last night.
Good.
All right.
I just wanted to say, to Belle's point, I haven't done any online training yet either. All my training experience has been in the classroom, which I love for the people connection.
Yeah.
And I was really concerned about how to transform online training for that same connection. And
Right.
to Belle's point, I'm really seeing through this experience, you really feel connected. Like, I can't wait to go to my next breakout room and see who else I'm going to meet. And one tip I'm giving out, right after yesterday's meeting, I went and sent out all kinds of LinkedIn messages to folks so that we create the LinkedIn community.
Right.
Some people are on that premium platform, so I can't send anything to them. But I'm just, again, Belle, that might be another thing for your LinkedIn profile.
I don't even have a LinkedIn. Our industry is so small that we like to, okay, so LinkedIn, thank you for bringing that up. I'm grateful.
Great. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Belle. And do we have one other group who'd be interested in sharing? So I'm hearing, okay, engaging. I'm hearing, you know, you feel brought in, you feel understood, you feel supported. I love that.
Sure, I can speak to our group, Claire, if you would like.
Thank you, please.
Yeah, this is Marlene. In our group, we had a great breadth of experience, starting with Brian, who's actually, I wrote down, an online newbie. He has yet to have an online class, so he's looking forward to that experience. But he feels that some of his greatest strength is in his ability to be patient with his trainees and his ability to demonstrate. He works in the area of safety, so he can demonstrate a variety of methods for his trainees. Nice. And so he's looking forward to his online career. Nice. And Jock was talking about his greatest strength in being his relationship with his students, and he feels that has been one of his greatest strengths too. And last night I had a webinar where I felt I hit it out of the park, and it was unusual for me. Normally my webinars are interactive. This was, I had a co-host and there was no video. I could not see my students, my trainees. I could not hear them. So it was like speaking to a camera, being in a studio, talking to a camera. Yeah. But it was fabulous. And how do I know I had impact? Because I got immediate feedback after the session. Words like smooth and natural, and the use of use of humor, and prepare. You made it look easy, etc. So what I would tell other trainers is keep your evaluations. I keep all my evaluations, and I use them as marketing tools, as in my bio, and it's a great thing to put in your, what I call your hero file. If you're having a tough day, you whip those out and you take a look at those positive feedback, and it does a lot of good. So that was our session.
That's great. Thank you so much. And I'm sort of seeing that there's things going on in the chat over here. I love it. If you haven't spoken up yet, I'd love if you put a few trainer behaviors and a few of the impacts in the chat. I'll have Jonathan and Rayanne take an eye on that and chime in here. What are we seeing over there? Okay. Okay, seeing the trainees light bulb go off. We connected. I love that. That's great. Okay. And you know what I like, Marlene, is I know you had mentioned that you were going to go do a webinar right after our class yesterday. So kudos to you for doing that so quickly. I mean, just getting that on your, you know, you're in that world, you're already doing that. But I know for me, I don't like it very much when I can't see people's faces. It's so much, it makes it to me so much harder. But that's why, if you know you're going to be in a situation like that, like you're using the chat and you're trying to use polls and you're at least trying to get people engaged in that way so that you have some connection to what's going on for them, right?
Thank you. We did have 2 polls last night, and that was very helpful. And I want you to know, Claire, that I was so grateful to have the first session yesterday because I took a few things from that first session and I used it last night.
Excellent. So happy to hear that. Excellent, excellent. I love when you can put things into practice right away, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. All right, anything else that you want to share about the trainer behaviors or the impact? Because I think it's really important for us to remember that when we're in the classroom, we know that, right? We show up, we're live, we're feeling the room, we're getting energy from everyone. This is all really important. Please don't make the mistake of thinking that you can't have that online, or you shouldn't even bother to try, okay? We need to try to recreate those breakthrough experiences for our trainees, no matter what medium we're going through. Because I'm going to tell you something. I don't mean to be a downer here, but we're up against a lot of competition. There's a lot of people in the world trying to break into this online space. There's a lot of big names doing this online space, and there's a lot of people trying to break into this online space. And we have to stand out. And the way to stand out is to make a connection and to make a real impact on people and to help them transform. Okay? So honestly, when I really look back at my 25-year career as a trainer and being in a lot of different roles, and just to let you know, so I've been a freelance trainer, just an independent person. I've been a college instructor. I've been a program manager where I was working within a contract ed department, and I was managing clients and then also delivering training. And I've been a program director where it was my, independent, unique responsibility to build and grow a program entirely in a community. Okay, so I've played all those roles, and it's been really interesting for me to step back and see what are the levers that really make a difference. What kind of trainers do I want to work with? What kind of strategy do I need to use in order to build the business? Where do I focus my effort and attention so that I can really grow and build a business? And I don't think there's really anything that comes close to delivering an exceptional product, because word of mouth is really important. And if you get in there and you do the work, you want to make sure that people are super excited about the work you've done. There's no comparison. You don't want to ever go in and do kind of a mediocre job. And I've got lots of stories about times that I've learned that the hard way. Okay, so delivering a really exceptional course is step one. And today's all about the back end design that you will use over and over and over again, I hope, when you are thinking about any course that you deliver. Okay, the design of it is remarkably powerful. And we're going to talk about a lot of things that make this a little bit different than possibly the way you've been designing in the past. I know it's certainly different than the way I was designing. So let's go forward here into what makes what I call an amazing trainer. Trainer presence. You, the energy you show up with, so important. And like, are you excited about what you teach? Are you connected to what you teach? Are you happy to be there. That just makes such a huge difference. And we all know, in fact, we had a wonderful person in our last cohort, and he said that he would go into his classes very often, and the first thing he would talk about was, hey everyone, I know it's a bummer to be here, but we're gonna make the best of it, etc. And then we went through this class, and he was overjoyed, and he was like, that's, I need to change that. Why am I doing that? Why am I starting my class in this way of like, yeah, I know it's such a bummer, And he said, that is the number one thing I'm going to shift. I'm going to start going in and say, this is great stuff. I can't wait to, to get into this with you. You're going to learn so much, etc. And to just have a whole different view. So the presence that you bring to your class is really important. Of course, the impact you make on trainees is really important. You want people walking away saying, wow, that was a great use of my time. I would definitely go back to another class if that person was teaching it. That's really important, because that's going to lead to the third bullet here, which is the impact you make on business results. Okay? Like, you've growing your business. Like, I get that we just want to deliver great classes. That's true. But if you deliver great classes instead of mediocre classes, then you can spend more of your time teaching and training and less of your time marketing. Okay? I enjoy marketing, but most of us as teachers aren't really, like, that's not what we want to do with our time. We don't want to spend all this time marketing ourselves and selling ourselves. We want to teach. And if you are making a real impact on business results, you're going to be a sought after trainer. And that's what we want. Spend a little less time marketing, a little less time selling, because you're so busy doing the good work that you want to do. So now I want you to run over to the chat there, and I want you to think about this. What good things would happen for you if you could just improve the impact on your trainees just by 10%, just to get 10% better? Okay? Go on over to the chat and think about, put some responses in there. What good things would happen for you? How would your life change? Okay, let's see. Tell me. I'm not seeing anything happening over there yet. There we go. Oh yeah, more referrals. That would be great, right? And that's really the essence of this, is that, like, I have clients that I've been working with for like 20 years. I just keep going back because I'm their partner. We love working together. I deliver for them. They can trust me. I can trust them. I know their business intimately. And so I don't have to make a new client and another sale and do all that stuff, because I've got these clients who just keep coming back and coming back and coming back. And then the referral business is really strong. What else is happening over here? Okay, creates more relevance. Very good. More excitement. Yes, stability and security. That's nice, especially right now, right? If we can count on doing something and we can do it repeatedly, that creates this little level of security. More revenue coming in personally. That's always nice. And like you said, Robin, I like this. Repeat business leads to understanding their business. So you guys are in different places in your careers, of course, but I'll tell you that one of the things that's been super exciting for me over my career is digging in and understanding the internal operations of these different businesses and different industries. It's allowed me to go from showing up and teaching a class, which I love doing, over the course of time, to becoming a partner, a consulting partner with these businesses, where they call me for strategy and for program level stuff. So instead of coming in and saying, hey, we need one class in conflict management, could you teach that half day? Which is great. I don't mind doing that. I'm like, yeah, sure. But if somebody at the C-suite level calls me and says, we're having repeated conflicts in this arena, can you go in and figure that out and help them change that? To me, that's really exciting work. So I get to go in, I get to do a needs assessment, I get to know people and see the dynamics, and then design a whole program that sometimes includes leadership level things and mid-manager skills and then frontline skills. And that's really fun and exciting work for me. So I don't know if everybody aspires to that, and it's perfectly fine if you do or if you don't. But the impact you can make on business in doing this is really big. Okay, so I love these. I would not worry, where's my new client? Becoming a partner with my client helps me develop as a trainer. This is another thing. Again, I don't mean to speak for all of you by any means, but in my interactions with trainers and teachers over all these years, one thing I do know is that we learn, we're learners. Like, some of the reason I teach is because I want to learn something new. So I go, oh, maybe I can find a way to teach that. Then I will really know it. So in your journey as a learner, I hope that this will be a great step on your journey as a learner as well as a teacher. Okay, very good. All right, let's keep moving forward. Let's see. All right, what makes an amazing trainer? Let's talk about the foundations. Amazing training is a little different. It's fully audience-centered. That's one of the most important things I want you to remember. When you're designing training, it's all about your audience, okay? And it seeks a real change in behavior for your audience member. And it's based on the way the brain works and the neuroscience of learning. So here's one of the different things here. What I used to do when somebody would call me to offer a class, they'd say, hey, Claire, can you do something? And let's just use conflict management because I was using that before. Can you give me a class in conflict? I'd say like, oh yeah, that's great. What do I know about conflict? Well, I could teach this 5-step conflict model. I should really teach listening. I should teach this. I should teach that. My approach was all about what I know about conflict and about some of the exercises that I've seen that worked really well. So I'd say, oh yeah, I started with me. That's where I started. I started with, what do I know and what do I feel like teaching? But in this amazing training approach, we start with the audience and what's the real change they need to make. So just to complete this particular example, what I have found is that most often the problem that you're trying to solve for people is not a knowledge problem. It's a motivation problem. Okay, now this is not always true, and we will talk about some technical skills in just a minute. But most times, if somebody really wanted to learn how to resolve their conflicts, all they would have to do is put their fingers on their keyboard and type, how do I resolve a conflict, into Google, and they would be bombarded with results about, here, use this 5-step methodology, practice this, try that, etc. Those are knowledge things. But most of the time, what's really holding people back from resolving conflict well is something much more deep. It's about their motivation. It's about resistance. It's about, hey, I've tried that before and it didn't work for me last time, so I don't have confidence. Or it's about fairness, like, why is that person not coming to me to resolve the conflict? So there's these issues that are much bigger than the skills. And when you can tap into that, that's where you're going to get the real change in behavior. Okay? So most training is based on, again, the 5-step methodology you're going to learn, or the three things that you're going to take away from this, etc. And that's all good. Your eventual class will include that. But where you start as a trainer should be all about understanding the deep-seated motivations and the dynamics at play that are keeping people from doing it already. Okay? That's the difference. That's part of the foundation of amazing training. Okay? So your most important takeaway for this class, we've got a couple hours together, and what I'm hoping is that you're going to be inspired to reinvigorate your training design to support breakthrough results for your trainees and for yourself, so that you are more satisfied with what you're delivering. Your trainees are making a bigger, you're making a bigger impact on those trainees, and they're walking away with something truly meaningful and exciting. That when they leave your class, they can't wait to put it into practice. they're still going to learn that 5-step methodology. But by the time they get you're finished with them, they're going to be empowered and ready to try it now. Okay, so that's the big difference. That's our most important takeaway for today. Again, we have a lot to cover, but this is what I'm hoping you will walk away with at the end of our time. Okay, how are we going to do it? We're going to follow a framework for designing any course or workshop. I just want you to know that so I'm designing a new class right now. I'm designing a little short 90-minute meetings class. I've taught meetings 1,000 times, but this is a new class for a new client. So I'm going to follow my framework. I'm going to go right through all these steps because it makes it so much easier for me. So I'm hoping that you will learn to step back, look at the process, and just follow the process. And then what you do is you transfer your ideas to the roadmap. So I don't know if you found it yet, but at the end of your workbook, there's this sort of 2-pager that I call the roadmap. And what I love to do is go through the design process and then summarize everything on that 2-page roadmap so that I have a high-level view of what I'm doing with the class, who these audience members are, what our transformation is, and what are the big building blocks that we're going to go through when we, in the time we have. You're going to brainstorm with other talented and amazing trainers. We're going to mine all the genius in this workshop where there's so many people with so much experience, and we're going to bring all that together, and you're going to be creative and transformation focused. So that's our plan for today. Okay. So the first big question is this. We are going to start here with what will you cover in your online training class? And what you cover is determined by these 3 things and the intersection of these 3 things. First and foremost, you. We want to know about you. What are you passionate about? What transformation have you made? And we'll go into that in a little bit more depth. But when we talk about conflict, for example, one of the reasons I talk about conflict is because I'm kind of passionate about conflict. I actually grew up in kind of a high conflict environment in my grandparents' home, and conflict influenced me and how I operate in the world profoundly. So I'm really passionate about helping people understand conflict and and the opportunities in conflict. The transformation I made was not just about understanding conflict. It was about feeling confident in myself of stepping into conflict with other people and resolving things, and then feeling on the other side of that journey, the confidence that I was building as a person, like, wow, I can actually be a better professional. I can lead other people. I don't have to shy away from conflict. So that's why we start with you. I want you to understand why you are teaching what you're teaching. Not just like, well, because I studied it in school, right? But what have you been able to become as a result of learning what you learned? Okay, what new abilities do you have? Really important stuff, because if you start there, then you will understand your audience even better. So at the foundation, it's you, what you're passionate about, what transformation you've made, and then it's your audience and what their pain points are. And the third thing you bring in is, of course, the logistics. How much time do you have? Like if I had a year with someone, I could really teach them a lot about conflict. But if I've got 90 minutes, I got to be really, really pointed about what we're doing and how we're doing it. So you've got to combine these 3 things to come up with, okay, what is my class? What will I be teaching? Okay, and so today, this is really where we're going to focus our attention. Hopefully we'll have some time to go even beyond these things because there's a lot more to it, but these 3 things will help you determine what's called your most important takeaway. Oops, sorry. Most important takeaway is going to go right in the middle of these 3 circles, and we will explain that in a little bit. So questions, comments, your audience, logistics. Just want to take a little breath here, pause, and see what's happening for you guys. Do you have any comments as we're going to go into another exercise here in just a minute? See.
You know what? I'm so sorry. What was the middle circle? You said it was the MIT, but what did that stand for again? It was like
most important takeaway. Yes, and you'll see another graphic with that in the middle of it shortly. This one doesn't have that, but yeah. Okay, what's happening in chat, Jonathan? Anything that we want to bring out right now?
Not a lot at the moment. I think people are just absorbing everything. I
Okay.
did see that Emiliano said he had there was an aha moment, so I'd love to hear that real quick.
Yeah, Emiliano, you there? Would you mind? Yeah, please.
Sure. Well, when your example, when you said that you were called to give a conflict resolution class, and you start thinking to yourself, what I have to offer.
Yeah.
This changing your focus attention to your audience first, that alone is a simple, subtle distinction. But for me, it's like, that's
Yeah.
an aha moment for me. So thank you so much. If I take only that today, I'm already super happy.
Yeah, that's a big one. So I'm glad. Thank you. Thank you for saying that, Emiliano. Great. Okay. Okay. Oh, Wendy has to leave. Oh, Wendy, we're going to miss you. Okay. Good thing it's being recorded. You can watch it later. We'll miss you. Come on back later. Okay. So let's keep going. And let's roll with this. So we're going to combine these three things. What are you most passionate about? Then we're going to look at your audience and logistics. Okay. And we're going to combine all those. But let us start with you. So in this little break, we're going to talk about specifically, again, you're thinking about one topic here today. What compels you about your topic? Why are you teaching it? Why? What is your why? What problems and pain have you been able to avoid as you've worked with your content? So if I go back to my example with conflict, I know actually that I feel far more confident leading a team and leading others and being a consultant because I'm not afraid of conflict anymore. I don't shy away from it like I used to when I was young. And this is really important for me because to me, it anchors to the people I'm training. And I think like, hey, you guys, if you can learn this, you've got more career options in front of you. And maybe that's a good thing, right? You're going to be more confident. You're going to be more comfortable in a lot of different situations. So I need to know me. What problems and pain have I been able to avoid? What wonderful outcomes have you been able to achieve? All really important stuff, okay? And what is unique about your perspective and your experience? So let's go back into a breakout room. Let me think. I think I might go ahead and put you in brand new breakout rooms. My objective in doing so is that you will continue to get to know other people. Okay, we're gonna go about 12 minutes in this one. And I'm just gonna, there we go, there's our breakout rooms. And so I'm gonna recreate my rooms. You're gonna have about 12 minutes this time. So again, say hello to your new friends and we'll go for it, okay? Okay, welcome back, everyone. Give everyone a minute to get back here. How did it go? Oop.
It went great. We talked about how awesome our classes are going to be and just the titles and everything that's going on. So it was
So
nice.
excited. I love it. I love it. I love it. That's great. So exciting. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. Okay, tell me, how was it? Yeah, you'll have to unmute, I think.
It was amazing. These are such great questions.
Good.
It provided so much insight into other people's disciplines.
Good.
And it was amazing to see the direct correlations from their discipline to my discipline.
Good. Good.
So crazy again.
Love it. Lots of notes. I'm so glad. Great. Anyone else?
In our group, I'm sorry, excuse me, go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, well, there was a lot of discussion in our group. I don't think we really went through all of the bullet points here, but just a final bit of conversation we had is that because looking at some of these questions, you know, as we've all been, most people have been working from home for an extended period of time, and that looks like that's not going to change for a while. And so it should be very interesting to consider what the issues that people said were real problems, you know, before, if they'll continue to be real problems, because now the real challenges we're facing are how to work remotely and how to connect with people and how to strengthen teams and how, you know, all of those really important interpersonal skills, and the perspectives that we've had and the issues that we've been facing are going to be completely are completely changing now because of the situation we're in.
Right.
So what compelled us in the past may be very different now.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. It may be, for sure. And this is why you have to kind of go in and continue to seek and understand, right? Because, so one thing that I'm noticing right now that's coming out so fascinating is that people were just as an example of this thing. So people were talking about how frustrating it was that everybody went remote. And I was hearing from a lot of leaders that were saying, you know, I don't know if my people are working. Some people have literally disappeared, all this stuff, right? And so the compulsion there is to say, oh, well, we better train those people about how to get, you know, check in and work remotely and blah, blah, blah. Well, really what some of the problem was, and that is part of the problem, but some of the problem was that the managers don't know how to set goals, you know, clear goals and outcomes and deliverables and stuff like that. And their frustration was coming out about kind of pointing at the other people and saying, that's their problem, that, you know, go in and Claire, go fix those people, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, wait a minute. We also have to understand your reluctance to goal setting and to work with the team this way. And some people, the other thing that was happening was that people were like, oh, I'm so relieved. I didn't like that person on my team anyway. Now I don't have to talk to them anymore. So that there's like this other layer. So these are the really unique, interesting things that start to come out.
Well, what you're talking about, Claire, too, is those same principles are applicable whether you're remote or not.
Right, exactly.
And
right.
that's what and that's what came out in our group as well. You know, yes, there are a lot of challenges in online instruction, but there are some things that, as we said before, that are the same. You still want to be professional and knowledgeable and so forth. What was unique in our group is that we had an international experience, made one trainer unique. That was Mina. And we talked about the pain that some of us had to overcome in our own growth.
Nice.
And one of those was nervousness, that no matter how experienced you are as a platform speaker or a trainer, that you still get butterflies when you get in front of an audience. And there were Toastmasters in our group, and Toastmasters teaches you that, you know, it's natural to be nervous, and yes, you're going to have butterflies, but the trick is to train those butterflies to all fly in formation.
Right.
Head them in the right direction, and you'll be good. As an actor, you know, I was worried if I wasn't nervous before stepping on the stage, because so you learn to channel that into a positive way.
Okay, so that is a great example that I think we can all relate to here, which is that so just to highlight this one more time. So let's say that a presentation class will tell you about dynamic delivery and how to design your content and this and that. But what really gets at it is the trainer who can look at you and say, I see and I understand your nervousness. I was like that too. And here's what I did to help. And our class is actually going to address the confidence layer and the butterflies and specific things for you to do so that you can step into that confidence. And then you'll see the transformation on the other side, which is that not only will you have a well-designed presentation, but you personally will now feel confident to stand up in a board meeting and, you know, or talk to, you know, your board of supervisors or blah, blah, blah. Like, so that's the essence that we're getting to. It's that transformation that can happen when people are willing to step into the learning space. And we know this because we've done it. Okay, for all of you, for all of us, if you go way back in time to when you first started learning whatever it is that you want to teach, something happened for you. There was some reason that you were compelled to do that. There was some transformation that you made. Now you are on the other side of that, but I don't want you to forget what it felt like when you didn't know it before. Okay, you got to go back and say like, okay, this might be easy for me. It's not easy for everyone. So what are the real things that hold us back? So that's really the essence of this piece. I always try to start with this. When I'm stuck with what I'm going to teach, or, you know, a new audience or a new person or whatever, you know, a new topic, I'm always like, wait a minute, let me think back. What was this like when I maybe was first learning this? What was I feeling? What was I experiencing? What were the dynamics? Were there power issues that I had to deal with? Was it confidence issues? Was it, what helped me get over the hump? So after you do this kind of an exercise with your new class, I want you to kind of like free write about it, or go for a socially distant walk with a friend and talk about it, and then transfer the highlights to your roadmap. And the reason is, before you hit the go button on your online class, I want you to go back and look at that one more time. What I used to do, just so you know, is like while I'd be driving to my class, you know, to go give my online class, I would go through these steps. I would go through like, I would think about my audience. I would think about my own transformation. I would get myself fired up. And now I just have to do it from like the walk from the bedroom to the to the computer. But it should be part of your process to try to remember that these things are going on in the background. Okay. Okay. So we have a lot more to do, but I want to take a very quick stretch break, and let's do a little 2-minute bio break before we go into the audience piece. Everybody stand up, stretch, move. We're going to have a much longer break shortly, but I want you to get a little stretch and go refill your tea or coffee if you like, and take just a couple of minutes. I'll call you back in about 2 minutes. All right. All right, everybody back. A few people with cameras off. I don't want to. All right, quick check-in here. Quick check-in. For those of you who are here and back with us, I would love to hear, I love doing these little one-word check-ins, one word or short phrase check-ins. So why don't you go on over to the chat, take a deep breath, connect with yourself, and tell me, how are you feeling right now about the things that we've taught? Just how are you feeling right now? What are you feeling in your body? How's it going? Okay, relief, Belle, thank you. Refreshed, thank you, Desiree. Comfortable, very good. Connected, enthusiastic, confident, good. Excited, engaged, love it. Keep it coming. Feeling included, thank you. Motivated, very good. Awesome. So good to see you guys. I know this can be a lot, and I don't want you to feel like you have to redesign absolutely everything, but I think you'll see that when you take this fresh look at your class and you'll think about it just a little bit differently, and you'll position yourself a little bit differently, the opportunity for real inspiration comes. And I feel like in our world, we need a lot more inspiration. Like we need, you know, like leaders and trainers with sparkle and zest who can step in and motivate and inspire people to try new things and to come together. And that's a real big part of what becomes possible when you can connect with your audience at a really deep level. I'm glad to hear all these things. Learning, motivated, engaged, love it. Okay, so great. So now we are going to turn our attention to the audience. So, you know, the first step is to just sort of go back in time and think about, what experiences have I had? How was I feeling when I was just learning this? And that's going to give you some rich insights into how you might want to position your course or include some different things along with the standard content that you're going to teach. Now we're going to take a deep dive into your audience. And so I want you to go beyond the demographic analysis. I mean, you're going to start there. Who are they? What are their demographics? Or what are their life experiences? What are their cultural backgrounds? You know, something I like to look at is the degree of agency people feel like they have in their lives. Meaning, I teach a lot of, when I'm in different organizations, sometimes I'm teaching at the leadership level where people are, I don't know, I guess the thing is that they tend to feel like they have more control over the details of how they spend their day and how, you know, what they get to work on, etc. And then sometimes I work with other people who literally just say, I don't have any choice about what I do. I show up at the yard in the morning and they tell me, get in this truck, go to this park, clean this thing, fix that thing, you know, etc. And they don't feel that they have much agency. And so the way I teach those two different audiences is a little bit different. Because I want to address that layer. Okay, so that's what it means when I say degree of agency. Again, thinking about from your audience perspective, what problem do they face and how do you know? How do they feel about the problem? What pain does it cause? What do they want instead? What do they already know and understand about the topic? Like when I go in and somebody says, oh yeah, we already had conflict training. It didn't work. Like I need to know that because I want to know what have you already tried and why didn't it work or what worked about it? And then finally, what worthy breakthrough can you help them achieve? That's actually a lot of, kind of a lot of questions to answer. So you're not going to have time to do it all today, I promise you. But in your Be an Amazing Trainer workbook, there's a couple pages of these kinds of questions. And the best thing you can do is go find your audience members and talk to your actual audience members and see what kinds of things you can learn about them from asking them interesting questions. The next thing you can do if you don't have access to your audience is find people who are like your audience and see if you can, ask them about their experiences. And then of course, finally, if you can't get that, which most of the time you probably can find that amongst your peer group or amongst your friends or something, then I want you to be thinking about putting yourself in that person's shoes. How might I feel if I was walking in their shoes? What would I be up against, etc. So I want you to be thinking about those things. I'm going to send you back to those same breakout rooms you were just in. I want you to appoint a spokesperson. When we come back, I want to hear from maybe a couple of groups who haven't spoken yet. That would be fantastic. I do encourage you to take a picture of the screen if you haven't done so yet. And I see that Jonathan has just populated the chat as well. So thank you so much.
And Claire, as far as the length of this breakout, I'm wondering if we want to shorten this one a bit, given our current time.
Yeah, okay. We can go with, let's do a little 10-minute breakout and see what happens. So actually, let's go with about 8 minutes. And what I'm going to ask you to do today is maybe focus in on one person who's pretty clear about their audience and just spend your 8 minutes talking about that and go in a little deeper. Now, of course, you can break that rule if you like. That's just a guideline. But I'd like you to see if you can go in a little deeper. So just maybe pick one person and go through it with them and be a little coaching circle for those folks, okay? All right, everybody, ready to go? Go back to your same rooms and I will bring you back in about 8 minutes. Is unassigned Carol. Hi, Carol. Whoops. Are you, now, did you not get assigned here? Hang on a minute. Do you want to go into a room? I'm sorry, you're muted, I think.
I've been in a group with Jonathan and the firefighter trainer and I forget someone else from San Jose. I forget her name.
Okay,
I
you
was
know
in
what?
the room.
I don't know what just happened. I think some people left. So I'm going to go ahead and put you in a room real quick, okay?
You know, I have unstable internet out here, and I've been booted out and had to come on twice.
Oh, shoot. Oh, I'm so
So
sorry.
that may be, yeah, it's going to be problematic.
Okay, how about I'm going to put you in room 7. Is that all right? Oh,
Okay,
no.
I don't know when that is, but that's fine.
Oh, actually, I'm going to go ahead and put you back here. Uh-oh. You see the button to join? There they are. Okay. Welcome back. I bet that was a little short. So I would love to hear just a little insight from someone who hasn't chimed in yet. Anyone willing to represent your group?
I'll share. I'll just touch briefly on that. I work for a community college district. Work for San Bernardino Community College District, and we have very diverse programs, and we work with a lot of populations. And so one of the populations, which I think a lot of people are familiar with, is the incumbent worker training, which is, you know, people that are employed and their employers send them to our training courses. But another population that we work with are justice involved, and meaning they're on parole, probation, or at-risk youth, or have other justice-related barriers. And so when we design these trainings and our trainers come on board to instruct them, we always have to have that in the back of the mind that they do have different needs, and it is a different delivery and way to connect than with the incumbent workers. So that is definitely a key component of what we do with our development of our programs and our trainers as well.
Yes, yes, yes. So great. Thank you for sharing that. That's really important. Yeah. I think that it's, again, when you compare and contrast audiences with very different needs, you really see the importance of going in and not just having a content focus, right? But really having an audience focus. So thanks for doing that. I appreciate that. That was one of the early audiences I worked with. Rayanne will remember this. She hired me to do a training at a technical school. I was teaching interpersonal communication at an automotive training center, and a good number of the population were people who were on parole, and this was kind of a retraining program. And I took the job, and I didn't know that that was the case. And it was a little surprising to me when I arrived on the first day and they had to escort me in through like 3 locked doors and all this stuff. But I will tell you this, that was one of my favorite places to teach. And I just fell in love with those people, that audience. And I understood the world so differently. It's actually part of where this whole methodology came from. Was just really deeply trying to understand the needs of a lot of different people, and knowing that you have to teach a lot differently depending on who you're working with. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. Great story.
And Claire had to learn how to prevent people from hitting on her every 5 seconds. But anyway. Okay.
We had a great time. I love those. I love that audience. I love those guys. Anyway, okay, so let's keep moving. Thank you so much for sharing. I hope that was valuable for all of you, because we need to just keep that audience really squarely in mind. So remember this about this first part. If you can remember that you are the guide on the side, not the sage on the stage, that your role is not to stand in front of everyone and illuminate, reality for people. That's not your role. Your role is to guide people and to hold a space for them to transform. That is where you need to focus your attention and energy. And your audience member, because your audience member shows up, and honestly, this is a whole other thing you would see if you went in through my longer course, but your audience member is the hero in their own story. They are looking through the world, they're looking at the world through their own lenses, just like we all are. And so you want to meet them in that place and say, hey, I understand what's happening for you, or share with me what's happening for you. And then I'll just bring the guidance that I can bring, and you'll bring your life experience, and we'll meet together in the middle. And that's where the real transformation takes place. Mm-hmm. Your job then is to equip them to succeed by curating your content. That means of all the things that you know about your topic, you need to just pick and choose the special things and the individual things that are going to make a real difference for your audience. Okay. The curating part is really important. I'm going to say one of the most important things that I think I've learned along the way is what to leave on the cutting room floor. Okay. There's so many things that you could cover. In fact, even today, I do have more than we can cover today, but I know what's most important, and that's all at the beginning. So we're going to get through the most important stuff, and then we'll have a little extra goodies at the end. But ultimately, it's about curating the experience for them. So I want you to think about it that way. Out of everything you could teach, what should you teach? And this is where we're going to make the transition to the MIT, the most important takeaway. But first, I want you to make sure that you're avoiding these pitfalls as a trainer. Always feeling superior to your audience. It's really, really important. If you ever hear yourself saying, oh, if only they knew what I know, in some variety. Like I have a friend who's kind of a new teacher, and this is actually a common thing that's been studied with people who are new to teaching. But when you start learning something, you get so excited about it, and it's easy to fall into this trap of thinking, well, I have all this knowledge and I'm going to impart it to my audience. So I have this friend who's kind of a new teacher, and she keeps saying, nobody has these skills. And she teaches things like listening and stuff like that. And she's like, nobody knows how to do this. Like, actually, a lot of people do know how to do this. They know how to do it maybe differently than you're teaching it, but they do know. So meet them where they are. Meet them in their zone of genius, right? So be careful if you ever catch yourself falling into that. And that's a very natural trap to fall into, and it's fine, but just got to be aware. Mm-hmm. Be aware, don't misunderstand your audience's needs and pain points, and don't fail to ask. If you can ever ask. You'd be shocked at how interesting and unique each person comes to your training, with these unique needs. Don't oversimplify the reasons that people do what they do. We talked about this. It's not, most of the time in my experience, it's not a knowledge problem that you're trying to solve. Sometimes it is a knowledge problem, hands down. Sometimes it's a knowledge problem. Like, I would be using this new phone if I knew how, So maybe we just have to teach them how to do that. But a lot of times the reason that they're not learning how, or they're not doing it for themselves, is something else. It can be a confidence problem. It can be an access problem. It can be lots of other things. So you've got to go under the surface there. And then please beware, don't think that somehow you're going to rescue your audience or enlighten them. You are their partner. You're just their partner. You may be a guide. This is great, but your audience is full of people who are whole and complete and resourceful and creative. And if you can remember that, you will meet them in a different way. So those are really important things to keep in mind about your audience. Okay. So now we're going to transition. We've talked about you a little bit and your zone of genius. We've talked about your audience a little bit. We're going to throw some logistics in there. Remember that there's a place in your workbook for logistics. Logistics are pretty simple, but you have to put some constraints around your class. Like, how many hours do I have? What's the right format? I just created a new course when COVID hit, and I was like, you know what? 90 minutes is all we're going to do on Zoom right now because people are overloaded. So we're going to do 90-minute classes. We're going to do 5 of them. We're only going to do 5 because people won't sign up for more than 5, even though there's so much to learn. So I had to put constraints in place. And I said, okay, now if I only have 5 classes and I have 90 minutes, what can I really teach that's useful? Out of all this stuff that I could teach, what will I teach in those time constraints? So not only do I recommend that you obviously do this all the time for every class you design, but you're going to be doing it for your capstone. You're going to have 20 minutes to present. So you're going to have to use this set of logistics, a set of constraints, which is I've got 20 minutes, I'll be on Zoom, and this is my topic. And so what do I want to do in that 20 minutes that demonstrates my expertise of how to create an engaging online course? So anyway, the logistics are really important because that's your boundaries that you're going to need to work in. Okay. With all of that together, that's where you come up with your most important takeaway. The MIT is the most important takeaway. So I'm going to introduce this concept briefly, but then we're going to take a break and we'll come back and we'll work with it a little bit. Okay. Because we need a proper break here. So the most important takeaway, this is just, it's like the one thing. It's the statement of like, what's in this time I have, what's the most important thing that I want my audience to walk out with? Okay. What are they walking out of here with? And I want it to be inspirational, folks. I want it to be inspirational. I want you to be thinking, how can I inspire them? How can I empower them? You know, how can what I bring to them empower them, make them capable, you know, build their confidence, etc. It should be something that operates not just on the teaching level. So most of us as instructors are very well versed in the idea of how to write outcomes. The outcomes from this course. We're gonna do this, 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 and this. And usually the outcomes are like a long list. We've got like 5 or 6 things that we're gonna do. Those outcomes are still gonna be important, but they're gonna be subservient to this one most important takeaway. And so the most important takeaway is important on a lot of levels. One, it keeps you focused so that you can say, everything in my class has to support this. Everything in my class has to support this one thing. If it doesn't support my most important takeaway, I either shift my most important takeaway or I take it out of the class. So it becomes the thing that helps you make decisions about what gets cut and what stays, okay? Not only that, but you know what I love about the most important takeaway? I like to talk about it at the beginning of my class. I like to talk about it at the end. And then what I've often heard is that people walk away and they turn to a friend and they say, hey, you know what I did today? I learned this. And they repeat the most important takeaway. So in terms of you building a business, that's a really good thing. You want people to walk out of the room and be able to turn to a friend and say, this is the thing I learned today. This is what I got from that class. I hate it when I follow the audience out of the room and I hear them going, yeah, that was fine, you know, or yeah, I don't know. I mean, I learned a lot of things, because that does not catch fire, by the way. You know, people, that is not memorable. People are not going to be like, oh, great, you learned a lot of things today. Lovely. I can't wait to sign up for that. You know, like, you want to give them something really tangible. So most important takeaway is really, really important. When we come back from our break, we're going to dig into that. Okay, so I want to give you a proper break, but let's do a little recap. So far, we have connected with amazingness. Like, what is this transformation that you're going to create? We talked about what makes that amazing trainer and the experience of the audience. We started out with that exercise. Hopefully we've stoked up your passion a little bit for, remembering about your own journey and what makes you so excited, because you are really central to this training, and your passion needs to come through in all of what you teach. We've thought a little bit about your logistical constraints. We know that you've got a 20-minute thing for your capstone, but whatever you're teaching is going to have some boundaries, and those are really important. We've delved a little bit into audience needs, and I just want to remind you that there's a lot more audience question stuff in your workbook. Now you've also been introduced to the MIT. This has been a very strong morning so far. We've covered a lot of ground in the just under 2 hours we've been together. Way to go, you guys. Good job. Give me a thumbs up if you're in this and you're doing good and good. All right, love it. So now we're going to take a proper break. During this break, we're going to take 15 minutes. You can turn off your camera if you like. You might want to leave your sound on so I can holler back to you at the end of your 15-minute break. But please go grab some Post-it notes and a sheet of paper, or just a sheet of paper and a pen or whatever, because we will be using those after we work with your MIT and stuff like that. So we're going to get a little creative after the break. Oh, you got it there? Okay, very good. All right, everybody. I'll set the timer for 15. And we will come back then. Enjoy your break. All right, everybody. Did everybody get some art supplies? Some Post-its. I like to do, we're going to move into an exercise here shortly where I always like to do it with a big piece of paper. I have flip charts all over the place, so I've got those easy access, but some people just need just regular old printer paper or binder paper or whatever you can find. And that's always fun for me to be creative and do something a little bit different. Okay, let's keep rolling. We are recording, all good. So remember, just again, here's our roadmap. Here's what we've done so far. You connected with your amazingness, what makes that amazing trainer experience and the amazing trainee experience. We've connected with your own passion about your topic, talked about your logistical constraints, and delved into your audience needs. And so just before break, we introduced the MIT, and now we are going to keep moving forward. We dig into that MIT and do an exercise here around your MIT. So let's talk about the most important takeaway. I said earlier, right before the break, that it was really important to try to be inspirational with your MIT. And I think for me, what that does is it helps me stay connected to the layer underneath the content. It helps me stay connected to the transformation. And that's why I always want your MITs to kind of err on the side of inspiration and confidence and things like that. Here's a few MITs that I have used in my own classes. So time management. I used to teach a time management course, and I personally was a little bored by it. I wasn't using the time management techniques that I was teaching. It was one of those content-based courses where I went in and I was like, okay, let's see. Let's do an importance urgency matrix, which I did use actually and then let's do a time tracker, and then let's try to identify all these efficiencies and stuff like that. All good stuff for the right person at the right time, all good stuff. But then I hadn't taught it for a while, and I was called back to teach it again. And I was like, I want to make this course better. I want to make this course more inspiring for people. So I did some audience analysis, and I found that people were just overwhelmed, out of control of their time, and not enjoying their life. Honestly, like feeling like they're working all the time, and just, that's the problem they wanted to solve. So when I did my analysis, I came up with this different MIT. Hey, you know what I want? You know what I want for those folks? I want them to enjoy life a little bit more by taking back control of their time, giving them permission to be in charge of how their time is spent, or, helping them give themselves permission, let's say, is really what it was. So that was a much more inspiring class. Now I love teaching that class. People come in and the first thing they do is I ask them, tell me what you would do if someone magic wanded you an extra hour in each day? What would you do with that time? And then people start to dream and they think about all the stuff that they're not getting enough time for. And that's how we get that inspiration started. We talked about conflict management. That's also on the screen here. I want people to be more confident in their ability to engage and resolve a conflict at work. That's one of my courses that I teach there. A trust class. I do a lot of teaching about trust, but you know, one of my MITs for one of my short courses is I want folks to learn and practice mindfulness techniques, because I need to be mindful so that I can build trust at work. So that's a sliver of the huge range of things that I might teach in trust. In that particular class, due to the constraints, we focus in on those mindfulness techniques so that they can be a trust builder. And the last one, strengths. When I teach the Strengths Finder, for example, I want people to be excited and prepared to make small sculpts in their work life so that they can work from their strengths at least 5% more often. So that's kind of how I start the class. I go like, it's fun to learn about your strengths, but ultimately I want you to apply that and sculpt your work so that you get better and better and you feel more excitement about your work. So that's just, those are just some samples of some of the ways that I've crafted some MITs for some of my courses. And that's what I want you to be thinking about. Not just, again, not your outcome list, not your objective list, but the big picture, inspirational, most important takeaway that you want for people within the time that you have. So I want you to just play with this idea. Again, we're going to go back to your breakout rooms. We're going to give you about 10 minutes to think about and share this MIT. Comment? Is that you, Jonathan? No. Okay. Okay, so let me get your breakout rooms set up again. I'm going to send you back to those ones because you started now to talk about a specific audience, some specific things. Again, if you can just work this a little bit and think, how would I phrase my most important takeaway? And I just want you to come back to that. Just keep thinking, what's the one thing that I want my people to come away with, knowing what I'm passionate about and what they need and the amount of time I have, what's my MIT? So let's get this thing started. I want you to head on over to the chat and put some of your MIT statements in the chat for me, will you? I'd love to see those. And I'm going to ask Jonathan or Rayanne, one of you, to just kind of look through that and see some of those MITs, maybe pick a few out to share with us. I hope that, let's get this going, everybody. It's a great way for you, just play with it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be a shot at it, you know, give it a try.
I see from Jock, making the class transformational with personally practical, applicable takeaways.
Okay.
Isabel said she struggled with the MIT, but the group really helped with the target, with the topic.
Okay.
Brian said, he was in my group. I love this one. Love safety so you can go home to those who love you.
Oh, that's great. I like that. That's
recovering your sense of agency from Ianniello.
Nice.
Marla says, you'll be excited to know what's important in your career choices.
Okay.
Nina says, overcome fear of procrastination to make an informed decision.
Okay.
Robin says, I want them to be excited about being part of creating a respectful workplace for all employees.
Great.
Belle says, I hope to share the value of the blue-collar workforce and will continue to preserve its influence through my instruction of various automotive technology courses in LA.
Okay.
Suzanne says, I've never before looked at training this way. It will definitely make a big difference.
Excellent, Suzanne.
Marcia says, I want to empower trainees to understand and learn that the telling truth is very powerful and will lead to increasing chances of getting that job or promotion.
Good.
Heather says, time and stress management. Feel in control of their time, leading to control in their lives.
Very
good.
good.
That's like that, just like Brian's, that connecting what's immediately relevant to what's relevant in their lives overall, really powerful. Simplicity equals power here.
Very good. I like that. And you guys, if you want to talk more about your MIT statements or any of these things, for example, you know, Rayanne and Jonathan and I all have office hours set up. You have a document that is the schedule of everything that we're doing for this class, and it's got all the Zoom links and the times and everything. So I have an office hour tomorrow. I think, Rayanne, is yours today? Where are you? Yes, yours is today. Rayanne has one today, and Jonathan and I both each have an hour tomorrow, 2 different hours, so that you can join us there and we can brainstorm a little bit more about these things if you like. This doesn't just have to be about your capstone, by the way. This can be about anything. So come join us in our office hours. I don't want to sit there lonely. I hope that someone will show up and we can work together on your content. Okay, so I know it takes some time to get to that MIT statement. And just so you know, often I will draft an initial MIT statement, and then I go in and I do some design work, and then I come back and I modify it, and I go back and I do some more design work and I modify it. So it's not like you necessarily have to write it once and then make everything fit to it. It's an iteration. You just keep going back and working it a little bit more and a little bit more. But at the end, when you step back and you look at your whole class plan, you should be able to put that MIT up on the wall and have everything relate to it. And I'm going to show you how to do that next. Okay? All right. Oh, wait, did we get one from Desiree? Let's see. We got 2 more here. Oh, a couple more. What else? Okay. Inspired to build trust. Great. You guys keep looking over here at your MITs. I love having that stuff over there in the chat so you can all kind of learn a little bit about each other's approaches.
Claire, I have a question on the MIT.
Sure.
Would you suggest, I know we're all doing online right now, but both online and face-to-face, I'm being positive, we're going to get back there one day. Would you suggest opening up, like having a banner or something with that statement at the beginning or in the room, or maybe, you know, kind of on a couple of slides throughout the day or your time with them?
Absolutely. So when I'm teaching live, I put it on a flip chart and I put it front and center. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And here in this online environment, you saw that we go over it at the beginning. I usually go over it again at the end. Sometimes we do checkpoints throughout the course and we say, okay, are we still on track with this? You know, are you getting inspired? Are you getting energized, et cetera, stuff like that. So by all means, I love having that because I want to keep myself accountable to that outcome. And I want all of the participants to just remember, this is what we're here to do. This is our main objective. Okay?
Thank you. That's awesome. Thanks.
Of course.
Real quick, I was just going to add, it would be cool to do just a video or a graphic of here's what I'm sharing with you. Here's your MIT, you know, like a little graphic that would pop up as we progress through the class. So anyway, thinking about it.
Nice. All right, I love it. Okay, so now, folks, we are going to get creative. We're going to get creative. Honestly, I have to say, what helps me, and you can do any process you really like, but what helps me is to not think about my class in a linear fashion. I do not start with the PowerPoint slide deck open. I do not do that personally. Now, everybody's brain works differently. Some of you may find that that's an easy way for you to do it. But what I like to do is like this picture over here on the right-hand side of your screen. I like to write my MIT really big in the middle of my flip chart paper and then just start making a mind map of everything I can think of that are the building blocks to success, okay? So, for example, this one is just a picture of a class that I was building at one point about cross-cultural communication. And so I wrote in the middle, I want my audience to feel comfortable, engaging, and curious, authentic, cross-cultural communication. That's what I was working on. So then I just started to mind map it. So how do they do that? Well, they need to be able to ask good questions and suspend judgment and be curious. And then what makes a good question? And they need to understand cultural lenses, and they need to understand themselves. And maybe they need to know what cross-cultural communication even means, right? So I just started getting, mapping it all out. And I like to start that way, messy, flip chart craziness. Another way I do it is sometimes I just grab Post-it notes. So this other picture is a picture of, let's see if I can discern which class. Oh yeah, that's still cross-cultural communication. So then what I started to do is break the class into the building blocks. So I knew I had a certain amount of time. I'm guessing this was probably a 2.5 or 3 hour class. And so the yellow Post-its across the top are my 3 main building blocks that I pulled from my mind map over. And I was like, okay, if this is my first building block, and it says there on the yellow one, it says, what is cross-cultural communication? Then what am I going to do to support that? And I put my little green Post-it notes underneath. So what is cross-cultural communication? I wrote under there, how does culture create something? I can't read it, I'm sorry. And the other one says elements of culture or something. And then, so the next one is, what's your culture? And it's about telling stories and cultural lenses. And then the last one is about learning about other people. So I wrote in there being curious and asking good questions. So, so this is just the beginning of my process, but I start with a big mind map, put my MIT in the center, and then I pull from that, what are the most important things? So let me say that the pink and the blue Post-it notes are the opening and the closing. And there's a whole rhythm that I like to do with the opening of the class and the closing of the class. We're not going to have time to get there today, but those things are described in your workbook. Okay, so by all means, go in there and look. It talks about timing and the rhythm of the class and the things to do in the opening and the things to do in the closing. If you've been training a long time, I'm sure you kind of have your rhythms around that. But if you're new to it, that might be really helpful. So there's all that stuff. And I just like to move it around on Post-its because it helps me think, hey, I could do this a lot of different ways. What makes sense? So for me, one of the things I love to do, I live right by Redwood Forest, and there's a river and there's little stone path that I run across to get across the river. So I think about these building blocks. I'm going to mix metaphors here. I think about the building blocks as like the 3 steps I have to take to get across the river. If everybody's with me on one side of the river in the morning, we're going to do our introduction, and we're going to jump to the first rock, and we're going to do this kind of exercise, and we're going to jump to the second, and then the third, and then we're going to be on the other side together. So I like to think about it that way. What are the big, most important anchor points, building blocks, whatever you want to call them, that take us from, the beginning of the process to the end. So that's what I'm going to have you guys do on your own right now. Let's go. We're going to do a little bit more with the MIT and the building blocks. So here's how it's going to work. When we think about that MIT, again, because you're going to put your MIT in the center, just remember these words. I want you, you want or need your trainees to be inspired to do something, and then to know something or know how to or be able to. So the 2, 3, and 4 bullets, the know this, know how to, and be able to bullets, those are your building blocks. Those support your MIT. Okay, so first write that MIT, and then think about how are they going to get there? What do they have to be inspired to do? What do they have to know? What do they have to know how to do? And what do they have to be able to do? Those are 3 different ways of teaching, as I'm sure many of you know. To know something is to work on the concepts or the vocabulary or whatever is necessary, okay? To know how to do something is to understand the process or the step-by-step. And to be able to do something is to practice a skill. So those are 3 different ways of teaching, and maybe those are 3 building blocks. Like our first building block is about concepts and vocabulary, our second is about process, and our third is about skill. Could be, doesn't have to be, but that's just some ideas. Okay. All right. Questions, comments about that before I send you back to, I'm going to send you into an on your own exercise. Okay. All right, let's do it. Let's go on your own. I'm going to get you, I want you to be creative, do your mind map, MIT in the center, work out your building blocks, and this is how we're going to do it. I think we'll take 10 minutes for this rather than 12, just in the interest of time. On your own, you can shut off your camera if you like. I'm going to pause the video, and I will give you a little verbal warning. So if you want to keep your sound on, that's great. Otherwise, I will see you all in about 10 minutes, and I can't wait to see what you've come up with. Okay, as people are rejoining us, how did it go? Show me hold up your maps here. I want to see what you've got. Got some good stuff on your pages, I hope. Okay, good, good, good. All right, some of you did it in your workbook. I love it. Thank you. Oh, we've got Post-its and everything. How exciting. All right, so tell me, can I hear from someone I haven't heard from yet? We've got some quiet voices here on our call, and I like volunteers, not victims, but if anyone who hasn't spoken up yet is willing to unmute themselves and share a little about your process, I would love to hear it. All right, nice. Nice, Ianniello, very good. Anyone?
Hi.
Hi.
Isabel, hi.
Isabel?
Well, I did comment in the chat that I had trouble. I struggled with how to gather all of this together for MIT.
Yes.
And so you just want me to just kind of read what I just brainstormed right now in these 10 minutes?
Yep, just give me your MIT and a couple of your building blocks. What'd you come up with? Okay.
So there's my MIT, and so mine is really about a customer service experience in the cannabis industry. So that's what I'm going to do my capstone on.
Okay.
So they need to be inspired to create an awesome and energized customer experience by using their listening skills. That's going to be one of the top things that we need to cover. They also need to know and understand that besides the recreational use, there is a very heavy duty medical benefits to this, and understand that many of their customers will be asking those specific questions, like myself.
Okay.
Be able to assist customers with confidence.
Okay.
And to also recognize when they need to ask for assistance, because sometimes they don't know all the answers.
Okay.
And of course, the know how to not only close the sale, but do an upsell. And so that's what I'm thinking. That's my line of thinking. Thank you.
I love it. Okay, so I heard something in there, Isabel. I heard that they would be able to confidently serve their customers.
Yes.
You know, so I'm hearing an MIT right there. Like the big picture, everything else you said was about, would support, in a sense, their confidence level.
Okay.
Right? So if they know how to be a good listener, if they really understand their audience or their customers, if they really understand the needs of their customers, and if they're able to move a person from exploration to purchase and maybe upsell, then they're going to come out at the other end a confident customer service professional / salesperson, right?
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, that's very cool. I like that. So I love that you're willing to play around in this space a little bit, because I want you to know that it does take time. This is kind of, for me, and I developed this methodology, it was quite some time before I got comfortable with the idea of like, how do I phrase this as an MIT, and how do I really support this with powerful building blocks that people can understand? Because ultimately what we're doing is we're guiding our audience on a path from where they are now to where we want them to be in an appropriate amount of time, right? So where are you now? If they're like, oh, I'm brand new to selling cannabis, I don't understand the product, I don't understand my audience, and I don't know how to make a sale. Okay. If you've got somebody that's that audience member, that's that participant in your course, you may have 3 important building blocks. What is your role as a customer service agent? What do you know about your audience, and what are the basics of selling, or something like that, right? That's kind of probably a long class. That might even be a 3-part course. But when I hear that, that's what's coming to mind for me. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. So Isabel, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to pipe in here about during the office hours. This is something that my last group, the last time we did this boot camp, we really worked together on that MIT and really figuring out what are my 3 key points that I'm going to cover. And then for the presentation, taking one of those points.
Yeah.
And thinking about those 3 areas. What practice will we give the people on the Zoom call? And that's what was the meat of the presentation. So thinking about that as well.
Perfect. Okay, very, very good. All right, folks. Boy, what a journey we've been on so far today. You have covered a lot of ground. I hope this is starting to come together for you, that you're starting to see how you and your audience and the logistics and the MIT all come together for a very powerful class. Now, this is where generally in my process, this is what I do. I think about what I'm passionate about. I get in touch with my audience's needs. I think about my logistics, and I craft my MIT and my building blocks, okay? I do the messy process, the big mind map. Then I step back. And I go, now wait a minute, out of all this stuff on my mind map, what's the most important stuff in the time I have that's going to help my audience get from where they are to where I want them to be? What can I cut? What does not have to be in here? What can I do in one exercise that covers 2 things, for example? So for example, what I might do, if I'm learning, Isabel, can I go back to your example, your cannabis example? Okay, if I'm teaching people who are new to the cannabis industry, for example, if that's my audience, and I want to say, I want to teach you about the key vocabulary and terminology you need to know in order to feel comfortable in this space and having conversations with your customers, then I might do a fun exercise, like an opener exercise, where I introduce some vocabulary and I play around with, I do a little bingo game, or I put people in groups and I have them fill in a quick matching worksheet or something like this. So they work together, they get exposed to the vocabulary, they have fun and connection, and it's all part of my initial exercise. Okay, so at this point, I'm stepping back and I'm thinking, I just need to really understand the biggest, most important pieces to this puzzle. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to spice it up. We're going to get in there and we're going to play around with how to do all these different things. How do I be really engaging, but get right to the core of what a person needs to know about the essence of sales? So let's say I've only got 90 minutes and I have to take people, like, what are the 3 things you got to know about how to make the sale? Okay, or something like that. So if that's your thing, you just got to drill it down and get super clear. So one of the enemies of a good, powerful class, by the way, folks, is clutter. You don't want clutter. You don't want to go off into this direction and off into that direction. You want to bring it in. Again, your job is to curate out of everything that you know. How are you going to take people through a nice, clear, enjoyable journey from point A to point B? Okay? So this is the part where you step back, look at your mind map again, and what's most important. So I'm just going to be quiet. Actually, we're not going to do 3 minutes. We're just going to do like a 1-minute pause. I want to just be quiet for a minute. I want you to step back. I want you to look at what you just completed and see what you can cut out. Is there anything that you leave out of your course? That's really important. What can you eliminate? So take a quick look there. And then what I want you to do is, if it's really clear to you, go on over to the chat and put in, I'm cutting this, I'm cutting that. Okay, I want to see what you're cutting out of your class. Thank you, Brian, for getting us started. Okay. All right, what do we have here? Okay, Brian said he combined two topics that were very similar. I love that, Brian. Thank you. That's great. That often comes up. You're like, well, do I have to do both of these? Not really. I can pull this into one powerful exercise, and that will help me curate, right? Okay, Robin spent her time looking at one building block for 20 minutes for the 20-minute presentation. Perfect. Okay, adjusting the MIT. Perfect. Love it. I'm experiencing difficulties with eliminating things. I'm instructing a large trade like auto tech online. Yeah, I absolutely hear you, Belle. And the thing is that a lot of times, this is where we're going to go to technical skills, that in some cases with technology, with technical skills, like how do you build an engine? How do you mix these chemicals for the right outcome? How do you weld this thing to that? How do you produce an Excel spreadsheet? There are very defined steps that you really have to make sure people can meet. And the only thing I can really say about that is I want you to think about what people might be able to do outside of class and then show you that they can do. That's one way of bringing the time, tightening the time a little bit. Or what can you do by video, and then maybe you can do a hands-on something if you have a lab, if you have lab time. I know that's, some people are doing that in different ways now. But the technical stuff really is kind of building blocks. But here's what I need to say about technical things. Please don't forget to inspire. Even with technical skills, we need to inspire, okay? I'll give you an example. I never did teach Excel, but I used to manage a lot of instructors who taught Excel classes. And there was one instructor I had, and she was so funny and so humorous, and she really lit me up. I would go sit in her Excel classes, and she would help us see not only how what we were doing would be like a great career skill, right? So it's not like, oh, we're just learning how to do these formulas. It was like, hey, what if you learned these formulas and then you could get a promotion because of it? Or what fun, interesting data could you present to your boss or your director or something, if you really understood how to manipulate, well, manipulate might be the wrong word, utilize data, and you could show things in these cool spreadsheets and charts, so don't overlook the opportunity for inspiration with every topic. And please don't fall into the trap of thinking that just because something's technical that it's not inspiring, because it is inspiring. People need to want to learn it, and they need to see how they can apply it. So don't shy away from that, okay?
I just add something about technical. A couple of things is that I'm not a technical person, but I remember sitting in technical trainings and things that I remember were based on stories. I remember for our automotive class that somebody was drinking a Coke and threw the can into the car. The car obviously malfunctioned and a child was injured. I mean, I remember that story, that, that was bad safety and lack of quality control and all of the things we were teaching in one story. Yeah. And one other thing that they did really well, and I remember this from a welding class, is they showed us all the different welds and what was acceptable versus what was great and why, and what difference that made in our quality. And so sometimes these kinds of things, videos, pictures, stories, examples, I remember those from 30 years ago.
Nice.
So they're very sticky. Thinking about how we can include those.
Absolutely. Stories, well-timed stories. Now you don't want to be the sage on the stage. You don't want to be the one that's just always saying, well, my story is this and my story is that. But boy, if you could tell one good, powerful story and then get people into groups where they tell stories to each other, again, they're the hero, it's their journey, help them connect with their story and also sort of like what they're becoming. Like sometimes you can use stories in that way. You can say, what's it going to be like? Tell me the story of you after you've mastered this skill. What's going to happen for you when, etc. So those are really kind of cool ways to use stories as well. Thanks, Rayanne. That's great. Love it. Okay. All right. So this is how we do it, right? We get that MIT in mind. We brainstorm. We step back, we look at our building blocks, and then we just try to simplify and modify. So again, we don't simplify to the point where we're not giving them what they need. If we're not giving them what they need, then we might not have enough time. Then we want to see if we can negotiate the time, okay? So if somebody, and you guys all know this, all right? I'm sure you've all been exposed to this in some way or another, but I swear this happens all the time. Somebody comes to me and they go, okay, I need you to fix my entire workforce because we're totally broken. We need to learn conflict. We need to learn project management skills, customer service, and team building. Can you do it in an hour? You know, like, has anybody ever, right? I'm like, no, I can't do that in an hour. I can't do that in an hour. But if you want, we can do an introductory session in an hour and we can follow it up with 5 hours of 1 hour segments, you know, or something like that. So if these are the real needs that you're being presented with, you have to sometimes be willing to negotiate the parameters and the logistics so that you have, so you're not so constrained that you can't make a powerful impact.
Claire, can I add something there?
Please.
I think this negotiation is a great part of the needs analysis. Yeah. You know, I've had conversations even last week and this week already with, you know, potential clients around what are the actual outcomes they want to achieve? Like, what are the business results they hope to see as a result of the training? And the more difficulty they have in articulating that means the more you need to really drill in so that you can deliver what's needed.
Yes.
And that's a different part of the negotiation. So if you're not that person having that conversation, maybe your director is, then you need to be asking those questions so that they can pass those along to the client. Because ultimately, you really want to be able to make that match. What difference will this make if they do get this skill or this understanding or this perspective? How does that tie to their bottom line? Because then you can build that into your training.
Right. And this is one of those places where we need to make sure we don't go off on a tangent, but Brianne and Jonathan and I think a lot and have worked a lot on those pieces. We're doing a little bit of it in our strategy session and in our marketing session, but the business development side of this is big. And I don't know about you, but I'll just speak to you as trainers. I always want to do my own needs assessment. I don't like it when somebody else goes and meets the client and gets to know their needs because there's so much that's lost in translation. So I'm always the person as the trainer who wants to say, look, I need to be good at needs assessment. I need to be able to go in, ask those questions, understand their needs so that I can design the right program for them. And then I partner with my director, you know, the person who's bringing me the contract. I partner with them to write the proposals and everything else so that we work together as a team. And it's one of the things that we'd like to, you know, for any of you who are interested in learning that pathway, that's one of the reasons we included the marketing and the strategy sessions so that you could get, you know, a little bit more exposure to that. And there's more. We've got other stuff that's not included here, but always happy to talk to you about that. Okay. Okie dokie. All right, everybody. So let's keep rolling. And Jonathan and Rayanne, you guys just keep looking at the chat and let me know what's coming up over there if we need to. We're going to go. You guys want to go back to your breakouts and share right now? I think we're going to move on to the next step. I'm going to make an executive teaching decision here. And we're going to move on now that you've had a chance to evaluate your own building blocks a little bit. let's talk about putting things in order, okay? And we're gonna look at the rhythm of the class a little bit. So your most important takeaway is gonna be the overarching idea that's always present in your course. And again, the way I like to envision this, and different people kind of have different ways their minds are mapped, but I like to think, okay, here's my introduction. I'm coming into the course and into the topic. And then I've got building block 1, 2, and 3, and my closing. The reason I use 3s is because 3 is a really strong pattern. It's a nice rhythm. People can remember 3 things easily. Now, you may do more than 3 things, but think about 3s, 5 at the maximum. 5 at the maximum. You want to like not really exceed the 5-thing mark in people's mind, because then it's like carrying a platter of desserts and all of a sudden everything starts falling off the sides, and you don't want that. You want to have such a nice clean platter that everybody gets to taste everything and they remember what was on that plate. I am mixing a lot of metaphors today. Okay, so your most important takeaway: you open your course, you come into building block 1, 2, 3. It's like getting across the river, and then you do your closing. And that's kind of how we do it. So on your own, I want you guys to take this on as an assignment, so to speak. I want you to build out your building blocks and your mini outcomes. Each building block has its own little mini MIT, its own little mini most important takeaway. I don't often publicize those to my participants. I don't talk about the mini MIT necessarily that's embedded in every building block. But if we go back here, I want to show you that the brain is at ease when we know where we're going, okay? When we don't know where we're going or what we're going to do, there's a little bit of confusion in the back of your mind. There'll be a little bit of confusion. And that can dampen our learning. So we want to make sure that this little map is nice and clear for people. And I'm not going to flip all the way back through all the slides, but at the beginning of today, we talked about your MIT, and then I said, okay, how are we going to get there? And we talked about the 4 or 5 things we're going to do to get there. Then a couple of times in the class, I've paused and I've gone back and I've said, here's what we've done so far. And here's where we're going next, right? Here's what we've done. So you want to make sure that the pathway is clear so that people aren't nervous about where we're going or what we're doing. And if you have a nice, clear roadmap, that's going to be really a lot easier for you. And that's one of the reasons that the clarity that you create in this process is so magical. Okay? I had an instructor, I was training this instructor one time, and she was doing a contract for me, and it wasn't going that well, to be perfectly honest. And I got a call from my client, and she said, come on down here and just observe. So I did. And she wasn't terribly far off base by any means, but there was a time in the class where she just got lost. She got lost. She was trying to teach a class I had designed. She got lost. And I jumped up, I was in the back of the room, I jumped up and I stood up and I just took over right then, because she looked at me, she like with those eyes like, hey, where am I, help me. I jumped up, I went up and I took over, and I ran the exercise and I started teaching and everything. And once we got people into their exercise, she comes over to me and she says, gosh, it's almost like you know exactly what's coming next. You didn't even have to look at your notes, you know? And I thought, that's the magic. When you design a class like this, you know exactly what's coming next. And that confidence that you have in how your course is designed comes right through, and it creates a sense of ease for your participants. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's one of the reasons I try to make this super clear and visual, and I map it out.
Claire, that makes perfect sense. I have a question around this. I've attended a lot of Train the Trainers. I've conducted a lot of Train the Trainers. But I guess, like you said, when we design it, we know what's coming next. So if I'm about to do a Train the Trainer, you know, I've done little things like in the PowerPoint to like put like in the corner, it looks like a page number, like little tips and tricks, like a V for video, or a, I've done things like a G for group breakout or something, right? To kind of give them a hint, because I know what's coming next because we designed it. Do you have any tips around, besides just putting like little tricks and tips in the corner of the PowerPoint, to help them to really take on this whole persona that we've done, because we created, it's in our minds, it's in our hearts and minds.
Yeah.
How, is there any tips in addition to what I've said that translates that for others?
Yeah. Great question. So I think the thing is, I feel like there's this way that people don't have to know every single thing that's coming. Just to clarify for everyone, I don't hear that's what you're saying, but they don't have to necessarily know, okay, you're going to do a group work and then you're going to do this and you're going to do that. But they have to feel like they're in good hands and that you're going to guide them from this to that, to this to that, right? So what I used to do in live training is I would create an agenda with a checklist agenda that would say, this is our first building block, our second, our third, here's where your break is, etc. Right? Just like we would do a normal agenda,
right.
But I would do mine slightly differently, where it was more about what they were going to take away from each step as opposed to just what we were doing in each step.
Like that.
Okay. And now in a virtual world, since I don't have a flip chart, what I've been playing with, and I'm really liking it, is that I create a map for people and I send it to them in advance sometimes. So if I can say, here's what we're doing, and I've even been playing around with how to do this in fun ways, like we're going on a treasure hunt, or, you know, blah, 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 you know, we're going to visit these 5 islands, you know. So I've been trying to play around with it that way. But even if you just say, here's what we're doing in class, you're going to get this, 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 and this, and you send it in an email in advance, even if you just do that, that can be kind of a nice way to go. Okay.
Thank you. I like that takeaway. Yeah. What's the takeaway, even from not only a participant point of view, but from a trainer point of view? Like, they should know in their mindset what each building block or section, what's the takeaway for the participants, and that will help them really kind of be engaged themselves. So that's good. Thank you.
You bet. Okay, so you build out your own building blocks and outcomes. That's what I want you to practice and play around with that. And I want to take a pause here and just see, where are we? How are you doing? And what other questions do you have? Anything burning here?
Can I just add onto what Claire just said? When I worked at the automotive plant, we actually did put a car with a path and how we would stop at each place and make it fun.
Right.
And how, you know, how did we get there? How was the trip? Was it too long? You know, so it's a really fun visual way to engage the workers as well on the path, and they feel they're on a success journey, which is kind of fun.
Love that.
Rayanne, did any one of them say, are we there yet?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All the time. Are we there yet? I love it.
Thank you. That's good. Thank you.
Okay, I have a question directed to Claire or any trainer. What is your best way to estimate time? So if you are trying to put together, say, a 90-minute or a 2-hour webinar, how do you judge if you have enough material?
Great.
Do the activities yourself. That's what I do. I actually go through and actually, as I'm going through an activity, if I'm setting up that activity, I actually do the activity myself, even though I know what it is because I designed it. But I actually write it out. I actually, you know, if it's a group activity, I'll do it with somebody and we'll do a little discussion, because that helps me to know the time frames. That's just my little trick.
Okay, thank you. That helps with activities. In general, though, how would you estimate? What's your best guesstimate method?
That's interesting. Okay, it is one of the things in training trainers, I will say, I hate to cop out like this, but one of the things I've said to many, many trainers as I'm training them is I've said, you kind of get a feel for it over time. Mm-hmm. Like you know this, you get a feel for it. So you go like, okay,
I know about how long this warm up is going to take. I know about how, you know, how I can rein in this exercise, or how I can eliminate this or that to tighten it up, et cetera, et cetera. So it's something that you do have to get a feel for. I agree 100% with what Desiree said. If you can practice something, if you're doing it for the first time, even practice your verbiage, practice, okay, in this segment, I'm going to say this, and you bullet point it, you talking point it, you know, this is what I'm going to talk about. This is what I'm not going to talk about. I think some of the timing issue has to do with the fact that we get excited and we want to tell every story, and we want to, if somebody asks a question and we want to go off on that tangent, and we want to, you know, and we have to just kind of learn to parking lot things and follow up with people and do that. That's a big part.
I'll just add in a little bit to what Claire said, because actually I just sent Claire an outline recently for a 1-hour training template. And I had broken it down by time, and she gave me some really great feedback, because we're in this together, right? So we're always trying to get better and better at our craft. Mm-hmm. And I had chunked out all the sections by how many minutes I would have. And then with her feedback, I then divided it into, I created another column that said intro, you know, main time and closing. And then I did the summary of the total minutes, and I was able to really readjust where the emphasis was away from the intro and closing to give the bulk of the time to the middle. And then within each part in the middle, there was still the breakdown of time. So that visual outline is a godsend when you're really in the middle of a training. And Ray and I have, you know, been together in trainings where, you know, suddenly there was an emergency meeting and we had to just go out of the room while they had an emergency meeting for something. And because we had that outline, we just quickly went through and said, okay, depending on how much time we have left, what can we cover? But if we didn't have that outline, it would have been a lot more challenging to do that.
Yeah, a template really does help. So for example, I have one too that if it's say it's an 8 to 5 live training, and I definitely put in all those things you're talking about. And I do agree with Brian too, that I make sure, you know, it's, if you don't have enough material, that's a problem. But if you have too much material, that's not a problem. You can always edit as you go. And I always make sure that I have more material than I need, just in case I miscalculated.
And I have to add that Claire and Jonathan always rein me in, because I will come in and I'll have all this stuff, and then Jonathan will say, put the time next to it. I was like, oh, I guess I have to cut that. And the other column Claire always makes me add is, what are the participants doing? Because if they're listening too much, you don't have enough activity. So when you have a trainer's guide, it helps you to kind of stay somewhat on track. And of course, sometimes we're pulled off. You know, this is a great conversation. We need to dig a little deeper. Right. We need to know, like what Claire says, put the most important stuff first, so that at the end, when you need maybe to fill it in, it's not the crucial information that you want them to walk away with.
And then what I found, and I think it's all good points of what's been saying, you start with the desired agenda, you put the designated time. What's really good is to also, after the training, put in the actual times.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the other thing that usually I get the compliment is, how do you always get us out on time?
Right.
And as you know, behind the scenes, it's like, well, they were supposed to do a team activity. Now I made it a pair and share, you know, and that flexibility within, as things come up, has served me well. So I always have, you know, well, maybe I'll switch it. I think, Claire, you may have done that during this session today, but you kind of switched it up. Oh, we're running a little bit out of time. We're going to make it an individual, or we're not going to go and break out in teams. So I think that built-in flexibility has helped me once the agenda, and then going back and seeing where it is. And then the others, I don't do this because I've done it for a while, but there is a timed presentation in PowerPoint. I'm sure many of you are familiar, where you can go ahead and record it and see where you're off track.
May I just add one more thing that Claire does really well that maybe you have noticed, is the transitioning. Now that we've learned this and we've learned this, and let's go here, it makes it feel organized. And I've had feedback from people say, I'm not organized because I'm trying to get everything done and I want to fit it all in, and I skip the transitioning. So I think transitioning is so important.
Yeah.
She's a master transitioner. I've seen that lots of times. I have one quick thing, and Jonathan, I don't know if you've seen this, or Claire, anyone. I have a producer. Every time I do online trainers, it's like a co-host, a producer. And my recent producer did this, and I thought it was amazing. He was able to turn on something in Zoom. Jonathan, I don't know if you know how to do this. He did it, so I don't know. I call him the Oz because he's just making things work behind the scenes. But it'll show like your participant list and their engagement. So they'll have like a green like line if they've been very engaged, whether they're chatting, whether they're asking a question, whether they're raising their thumbs up. It'll give them the percentage. If they haven't done anything in a while, it'll give you a red mark. So it's a nice indicator to kind of know if you're getting that engagement. And he did that, and it was just like, wow, where has this been? So I don't know if you're familiar with it, but I thought it was pretty clever.
I think this might relate to something Ray and I and Claire were talking about the other day, which is if they're registered in Zoom for a class, then you have that like attendance and those other features. I have not done that, but I love what you're talking about, and you can be sure that I'll be looking into it.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you. That was useful. I think one thing I just want to say about online classes, I've noticed this, it's very simple, but I've been teaching a lot of 90-minute online classes, and I have found for me, I can do about 32 slides in 90 minutes because of the way I structure things and the amount of exercises I like to do and stuff like that. And I was co-presenting with some folks. We did a webinar for an association a couple weeks ago, and it was a 90-minute webinar. There were 3 of us, and I had my slides. I only had 10 slides because I only had a third of the class. But then one of the other guys came with his slides. He had 47 slides for his 30 minutes out of the 90 minutes. And I was like, okay, we got to trim this way down, you know? And so it's not the same guideline for everyone, but I think you know how much the brain can absorb, let's say. And if you're looking at your class and you have 150 slides, I don't care how long you have, I can almost promise you no brain can absorb that. So you've got to kind of really think about how much people can absorb in the amount of time they have as well, okay? Mm-hmm. Okay, great stuff, you guys. All right, speaking of absorption, how many people are feeling pretty saturated? Give me a thumbs up if you're feeling kind of saturated right now. Okay. All right, give me a thumbs up if you feel like you want to do one more little concept. It's called spice it up. Anybody want to spice it up? Okay, very good. All right, let's talk about spicing up our class a little bit. We have talked about, again, when we think about the design methodology, this is what's going on with this next piece. Oftentimes, again, let's talk about the old design methodology and your new Be an Amazing Trainer design methodology. In the old design methodology, we might step back and we'd start with, as we talked about earlier, what do I know about this? What exercises have I used in the past that were fun, interesting, unique? What games can I play, etc. Okay, all good stuff, all good stuff. Probably in the wrong order. Okay, so what I want you to start with is, why am I teaching this? What am I passionate about? What's my transformation been? What's really happening for my audience? And what's their pain? And what's the aspirational future that we can paint together? What are my logistics? How much time do I have? And then what's my most important takeaway? So you start there. Then you go to your building blocks and you build it out. The most important stuff. Now that's where we are, okay? Now we're gonna step back, and now once you have those building blocks solid, this is where I say, okay, now you go in and spice it up a little bit. You're gonna throw in your spices. And so this is where I step back and I say, what activities can I use to make the course more engaging? I know what my most important building blocks are. I know what I want people to walk away with. How do I get them there? Where is a good place for a breakout? Is there an appropriate place for a poll? When should people be doing reflection? How can I use the chat? What visuals do I need? Where's a good place for some stories, examples, anecdotes? When do I want to use the whiteboard or a Google Doc? Where should I put in my progress markers, like my transitions, my recap, and my, looking backward, looking forward stuff. So I don't do that until I get my building blocks solid. I need to know the really important meat of the class, and then I step back and I go, okay, let's spice it up. How are we going to do this? How can we do this better, differently, more engaging? I like to apply these principles at that point. So I might look and I'd say, okay, where can I use a breakout? Where can I use a poll? Where can I use a chat, etc. But then here's 6 principles. These are in your guidebook. I go, less is more. Do a little less, but let them go deeper, okay? Remember that experience and emotion rule the day. If you want anybody to remember anything, couple it with an experience they can have or some emotion. Have them think about their future, the positive future that they might walk away with. Have them think about the pain that they've felt and the relief from that pain. Have them think about an experience they had where this would have been helpful. Their experience and having an emotional connection to what you are doing will always make it a better, more impactful class. So step back and look for opportunities for them to tell their stories, for them to create together, and let them do the work. One time, I was working on this class for this executive team, and oh my gosh, for about 2 days, we had a short course, and I had to come up with, I thought I had to come up with 6 principles for how they were going to communicate with one another. And I mean, I was like, okay, what are the right 6 principles? And then I was like, what am I doing? They need to come up with the 6 principles. I don't need to come up with the 6 principles. These principles have to work for them. So my job is not to hand them the principles. It's to create an experience for them so that they can arrive at their 6 principles. That's my job. Let them do the work. They will not remember it if I walk in and in fact, you know what would have happened? I would have come in with 6 principles and they would have said, oh, these are nice, Claire, but we want to make our own. That's what they would have said. Okay, so let them do the work. Ask, don't tell. If there's ever a time when you can ask a question instead of telling the answer, you're going to get more leverage out of that. Okay. Make sure you bring it in for a landing. We're going to start that process real soon. But remember, like if you've ever been on an airplane and you're like landing on an island or something, and you come into the runway and you know how the plane just skids to a stop and it's like so upset. It's like, oh, you don't want people to end the class that way. You want to bring it in for a landing, let people ground what they've learned, and then be ready to exit. Now, we don't want to spend a huge amount of time on your closing. That's not what I mean. I just mean leave people a chance to bring it in for a landing. And if that means you do a little less, that's okay. And for goodness sake, have some fun. Make it fun, make it enjoyable, get people connected to one another. All those things are part of an engaging course. Okay, so
quick example of all of these things. I was asked to do a class on rudeness. This is becoming a big issue for companies. Is how do you make people more civil? And I actually, well, this was of course live training, but I had them put a Post-it note on all the rude behaviors. And then I had them sort it out into, nonverbal, verbal behaviors. And then I put them in groups. Yeah. And they talked about the worst behavior and how they might address it. And it was like my work was done. I was like a little butterfly just pollinating, I wasn't a bee pollinating. I wasn't having to do all the work. And then we captured a top 10 list of behaviors. This is what we want to stop doing. This is what we want to start doing. This is what we want to keep doing. And it was just, that was the walk away. And that was like the best feedback I ever had and the least amount of work I've ever done. So anyway.
That's right, because people experience rudeness and it hurts. They don't like it. And yet we all do it to one another now and then, right? So the big aha here is, can you bring them into a class and have them own their behavior and walk out wanting to be a nicer person? And exactly the way you designed it, like that, Rayanne, the way you just described it, that is so much more powerful than having people come and sit in a chair and learn 5 categories of rude behavior. And then, you know, I mean, don't you think, does anybody have a different view on that? Sorry, that was sort of a loaded question, but.
Well, and I was just going to say what I do, piggybacking on what Rayanne said, is that I create communication charters, or we create communication charters, and they all sign off on it, and it's pinned to their wall back at the war room.
There you have it. There you have it. Let them do the work, right? Right? Their experience. Love that. Okay. Alrighty, let's keep moving here. We're just going to introduce this. I want to just kind of go over the rhythm of the class. This is in your workbook, but people always ask me about this. How much time do I spend here and there? These are just guidelines, but when I say bring it in for a landing, for example, you don't want more than 15, say 15 or 20% for each the opening and the closing. And then the bulk of the class needs to be on that really meaty building block stuff. People want something out of their class. You know that. You don't want to go to a class and be like, well, that was fun and I got to know people, but there was really nothing to it. You know, you want to give people a good, solid experience. But this is just some guidelines. So I put this in here because a lot of times people want to know. Now, Jonathan was talking about the minute by minute chart. I'm going to do a little Loom video for you. I'm going to introduce you to a content outline that I have. And I'll send that to you later. Before my office hour tomorrow, I'll send that to you. But I want to just show you how I lay this out with the timing, for example. And when I'm looking at the timing, I always step back and I think, what percentage of the class now do I have to the opening and the closing versus the building blocks in the middle? So that's what the timing is all about. Just watch your timing, map it out on a content outline. I think that's really important stuff. Okay. Again, you'll see more of this in your workbook, but in your opening, if you've got a good solid class, you can do a welcome and a warm-up activity that primes them for what they're about to learn. You want to provide a frame, which is what will we do today and what won't we do? And an anchor, which anchors that content to an experience of theirs. Okay? Then you go through your empathy. You show them that you understand where they're coming from. You show them that you've been there. That's the authority part, empathy and authority. Sometimes you set up psychological safety rules and guidelines. And then you do your MIT and you talk about what they're going to gain. Now, again, that's a lot of detail. We don't have time to go into all of that, but it is in your workbook. And I want you to know that it's there, because if you're new to this, or if you want to create a really powerful opening, or you're feeling like your openings aren't as powerful as they could be, go through. This is all explained. You can always send me a question about it as well. Closing is the same kind of a pattern. It's kind of the opposite. You're going to recap. You're going to address outstanding barriers. I like to assess people's commitment. Like, what are you really going to do? What are you going to put into action next? And then some kind of a closing reflection, like, what did you learn today about the topic or yourself? And what's your most important takeaway? So I know what my MIT was. I know how I wanted to design the class, but what are you taking away? That's really important.
I want to add, some of your experienced trainers, so that this probably, you already know this, but for those of you who are new, and if you're doing live training, I want to share how I lost a contract. I had a lot of business writing classes I was doing for this organization, and they planned my training like back to back with other meetings. So a meeting, and a lot of times these people wouldn't get out of their room. So I'm waiting, the class is waiting. I'm stressed out because I'm not there to set up, to get anything in place before we're supposed to start. Well, it's the same thing I've had even on the remote area. What people are coming out of another meeting, they haven't had time to use the restroom, they're frustrated. So I think it's really important when we set up our training to know where the participants are coming from, anything that's affecting them at this time. I mean, when we set up, it's really important to start strong, and all of these different factors can affect how much you look, how well you look organized, and how you bringing that passion. So as much as you can find out beforehand and be part of the planning process, like I need the room at least 30 minutes before the training and those kinds of things. Very important to get that squared away.
Very good. Very good. Love that. Okay. All right, folks. Big deep breath. Let's all take a big stretch together. Everybody. Yes. Deep breath. That was a lot today. Can you give yourselves a round of applause, please? You did a lot of really important work today. Look at all this. You did all of this. We talked about you. We talked about amazing training. We talked about you. We talked about putting some logistics and constraints in play. We talked about your audience and how all those things come together and help inform your MIT, your most important takeaway, right? Then you step back, you get your big paper, your colorful markers, your Post-its if you can, and you create your mind map and your building blocks, and you get that structure in place. And at that point, again, step back, spice it up, put those 6 principles into play, and then you add a really powerful opening and closing. And basically, folks, this is the process. I go through this process over and over and over again, and the more I rely on it, the better my classes become as I get better and better at each and every one of these steps. I love personally to do this creative work and then to transfer it to my roadmap so I have a high-level overview and create a detailed content outline. So again, I will send you a little Loom video that explains how that, I just wrote a sample content outline yesterday. So I'll go over that in the Loom video and I'll send it to all of you. Okay, so that is a lot of ground we've covered. How are you all feeling? Can you go over to chat for me and give me your one-word check-in? Tell me how you're feeling right now about your course design. Just how's your body? How's your energy?
Claire, can I make just a comment about Isabel's question about rules and whether to set it up in class?
Oh yeah, sure.
I would go to aerospace companies. They all have their laptops out. This was when it was live. And I could have set up a rule saying no laptops.
Yeah.
But I wanted it to come from them. And so why did that bother me? I kind of went internal. Why does that bother me? Because of the engagement.
Yeah.
So I felt like it was up to me as a facilitator for them to want to close their laptops. And one by one, within 10 minutes, all were closed down. But to me, I don't set up strict rules at the beginning. Yeah, and if something continued, I would have. But it came from them, the rules.
Right.
And I think, treating them as adults and being respectful, that has gone a long way for me in making sure it's my accountability as a facilitator to make sure they're engaged, just like you're doing a wonderful job.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Barbara. I appreciate that thought, but I was also thinking about an audience that may not be familiar with Zoom and just some basic things of, mute yourselves, that kind of thing. We're adults. We know that you're supposed to do those things. I agree with that, but there may be an audience out there that doesn't because this is community ed. So I'm not sure. I do have to talk to the district and make sure it's okay with them. And before I shut off my voice, I just wanted to say I feel great, but I am hungry.
Yeah.
I'm very, very hungry.
I'm with you, Isabel. Yes, let's take you to one last exercise with your peers, just to ground this and anchor it. And I want you to be thinking about what you are taking away from today. What specific changes do you think you'll make? So I'm going to send you back to your breakouts one last time. And when you get there, I just want to make sure everybody has a chance to speak. We're not going for 15 minutes. In fact, I think we'll go for about 8 minutes, 7 minutes. So this will be kind of high level, but make sure everyone has a chance to speak into the circle about one thing that you think you're going to change. Actually, let me make sure I have 8 minutes. Do I have 8 minutes? Why don't we try, I'm going to try even less. Okay, I'm going to put a little pressure on you here. Let's go for about 5 minutes and see what you can get. 1 minute each or something like that. And I just want you to get a chance to ground this for yourselves, okay? All right, welcome back. Welcome back. All right, everybody. So now I would love to see you. I'd love to hear everybody go to the chat, and I want to hear keys a tap in. I want to hear what you are going to do as a result of what you learned today. It doesn't have to be anything grand, but a little something. What are you going to apply? How will your course shift a little bit? What's one specific change you're going to make? Okay, Suzanne, much more focused. Very good. Incorporating breakout and whiteboard. Love it. Good. Glad, Marla, that you're validated, that your existing class is right on. I'm so glad. More specific goals from Brian. Great. Fresh start, or start fresh with the MIT in mind. Okay, Barbara, very good. Try the mind mapping. It might show you something interesting. I like it. Refresh, renew, and reflect. You guys, this is great.
Claire, I would love Marla to share the metaphor she used with me, because it was just so wonderful. I think it's a great add-in. Go ahead.
Marla,
right.
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. So when I teach my public speaking class, I talk to people about how much information around the issue of how much do I tell them? There's so much I want to say because I'm the expert and all of that. And so I tell them it's important to know and be prepared to go over a lot of content, but you can't cover it all. So I use the metaphor of packing for a trip. And I say, think about the last trip you went on and all the things you packed. Did you use all of that? How much of that did you really use? And most people say, I only wore a couple of things. Yeah. So what I say is, look, it's the same thing with a presentation. You've got to know and be prepared for this information, but take half of it out.
Yeah.
Because you probably won't use it, but at least you'll know and you can refer to it. And it also reminded me of a time I was teaching, and they were practicing fire drills, and we had to break out of the class twice for a pretty long time. Pretty much obliterated half the day. But when I came back, as you were saying, then I was forced to look at what I had ahead of me and say, really, now what's the most essential thing I've got to get across, because this is all they're going to remember other than the fire drill.
Yes, absolutely. I love it. I love it. You guys, so great. And I love what's happening over in the chat. I want to just pause and give Jonathan and Rayanne a chance to chime in here. Anything you want to add or tell me?
No, I'm just, I'm thrilled to see some of the reflections that people are sharing, and just shows me that we're on the right track.
Yeah.
And lots of inspiration and desire to really kind of just all of us get better and better at our craft. We're all in process together.
Yeah. Okay, great. I love it. Rayanne? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. I just love the stories, the creativity. I was looking at everybody's MIT. It's making me want to go out and start working on some of these classes I have coming up. So I really appreciate people stayed on for the most part and really participated. The breakouts were amazing. Thank you all.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Okay, so here's our recap. Did you learn a framework for designing any course or workshop? I hope so, yes. That's what we're here to do. I hope you feel prepared to transfer those ideas to the roadmap. Again, that one pager is important because it keeps you at that level of really getting the big picture. And that's super important for us, not getting too far into the weeds as the instructor with your design. You want to go big picture so that you can convey that. So I hope you feel prepared. You know, there's a roadmap in the end of your workbook. Did you get to brainstorm with other talented and amazing trainers? Give me a thumbs up if you met some cool people today. Good, I hope so. And do you feel that you were able to get a little creative, even with your existing courses, and stay transformation focused? How did we do on that one? Is that a yes? Who feels like they got a little creative time in today? I hope so. I hope so. Okay, very good. All right, these are the things that I want you to stay focused on as you are, oops, why do I keep doing that? There we go. There, okay, next steps. Let me remind you, on Monday, we invite you to Building Your Strategy. That's next Monday, okay? Building Your Strategy class. At 8:30 sharp, your Zoom link is in your course schedule that we sent out, the outline. Tuesday is about marketing and communication. Rayanne has a lot of amazing stuff there for you, 8:30 a.m. on Tuesday. Meanwhile, we're going to help you. We're going to set you up in groups for your capstone presentation, and we will let you know who is with whom, and then you can reach out to those people and set up time with your group to go over your presentations and do some practice. Your final,
Claire,
yes.
Claire, just a few questions from the chat I want to surface. So,
sure.
Someone asked if the Zoom link will be available for these upcoming sessions. They said they haven't been receiving the Zoom links in the email.
Okay.
They have been in there, so I just double check your junk folder again, but we'll make sure when we send out the group info that we include the upcoming Zoom links. In one of the first emails Claire sent out, there was also links to the office hours that are coming up this week. So go back and we'll try to and look for those, but we'll also try to repeat them in the upcoming emails.
Yeah, there's one Google document that has all of the dates and all of the Zoom links. We did that very purposely, but the problem is if you're not getting an email from me, that's a problem, because you should all be on the registration list. And I've been taking your emails and copying you on all of the communication. So if you're not getting an email from me, please send me an email to claire.laughlin@comcast.net. Okay. Now, Rayanne, did you just put that? You just put the link to that document in the chat. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, good. So you're going to go to the chat right now. You can copy and paste that link, and then you can put that in your browser and get access to that document that has all the Zoom links and all the information. Okay. Okay. Perfect. Okay, Ianniello, the group is just there to provide feedback. Yeah, to brainstorm with and to help you and to work together with, for sure, but definitely to provide some feedback and to help you just get better. Okay. All right. All right, you guys are doing a great job. We are, I think, let's see, I'm going to hang around here a few minutes. I think I've got somebody who's going to stay with me to have a little short conversation, but you know that, by all means, if you want to just stick around a little bit or send me an email, or Jonathan or Rayanne, we're here for you. Let us know how we can help, and come to our office hours. Okay, come on into the office hours if you'd like to chat a little bit more about the capstone or anything else. We will send you your groups and your group connection information. Okay, and with that, I guess we will say goodbye for today. Bye for now, and I hope to see you guys in office hours.
Thank you. Great session.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.